Hey YouTube, if you are watching this video, you either enjoy making some of your own tools, maybe you need to make something out of necessity and need to learn how to make this, or you're bored. I have no idea. But whatever your reason is, thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. So I have an inlay project coming up where I have to put some inlays in a banjo neck, and I need a plunge base to make that happen. So I made a plunge base to work with my Dremel Rotary tool. Now there's a bunch of different videos here on YouTube of people who have made these, but a lot of times I did not see a materials list or dimensions or any of those sorts of things to help me out. So I came up with this, and this is my design, and hopefully this will help you in making your own project. So first thing, we have to be able to connect this to this. And there's a few different ways we could go about doing this. The first being that you can remove the collar off the end of your Dremel, and you can modify that and drill a hole and mount that into your plunge plate. Or you could actually drill a hole all the way through, and you could take a tap and you could tap threads into the plate itself. I didn't have either one of those two options available to me, but in my box of accessories and things that I've never once used was this little router base plate made for a Dremel. Now I took the collar out of that, the mounting collar, and I drilled a 1-inch diameter hole with a Forstner bit and stopped 1/8 of an inch from the bottom, then completed the hole the rest of the way through using a 3/4 inch diameter Forstner bit, and that allowed me to have a little ridge on the inside that this collar could rest on top of. I put the collar in the hole, scribed a line around it, took it back out, cut it to length, installed it using some epoxy, then once everything cured, sanded the top nice and flush. So that gave me a nice secure way to mount my tool to the base. Now the base plate itself, down here on the bottom, is made from 3/8 thick clear acrylic plastic. It's 4.5 inches wide and it's 3 inches deep. Rounded the corners, cut a 3/4 inch hole in the middle using a drill bit, and then cut this tapered slot to the middle hole. That way I can see my work and know exactly where I need to go with my bit. Alright, so mounted to the plastic, the base plate, are these two flanged collars. They are also known as electric motor connectors, and there's probably some other names too that I'm unaware of, but I think of them as flanged collars. Okay, they came 4 to a pack. They're 8mm inside diameter, and they are attached to the plate using number 6 sheet metal screws. Now I did not drill all the way through my base plate because I like to have a nice smooth bottom when possible, and so I cut the screws to length, and I only drilled most of the way through. Did not go all the way through. Now each one of these collars has 2 set screws on it, and that's what keeps the guide pins in place. Now each guide pin is an 8mm rod cut to 4 inches long. I got those off of Amazon as well. So now, like I said, these flange collars, they came 4 to a pack, and I mounted 2 here on top of the plunge plate. Now these are modified. I drilled out the middle hole a little bit bigger so they would not bind or scrape on my guide pins. They're mounted with the same number 6 sheet metal screws, and the set screw holes, I drilled those out bigger and tapped them for a 1024 thread thumb screw. So they're 1024. Now this thumb screw is what locks everything in place. I tapped all 4 of those set screw holes, so if one of these was to strip out, I take this and I move it over here and I keep working. No harm done. So that's the reason for that. Now on top here we have these 2 little green caps. They just happen to be green, but you can pick these up at any hardware store or probably even the auto parts store. They use these a lot of times to plug up vacuum lines on the carburetor and that sort of thing. So that's basically what these are, and that just keeps the top protected, and it keeps this from sliding off when not in use or if it falls. But I can also just set the little thumb screw there, and it's held in place. It's not going anywhere. All right, so let's look at this this top plate. So the top plate is made from 3/4 inch thick maple. I like maple. I use a lot in making violins, but it's 4.5 inches this way, side to side. This way is 1.5, and 2 inches from there to the widest point. Now, mounted into this plate are two flanged linear bearings. Now, you can use a bronze bearing. You can use just a regular linear bearing without a flange, but you drill a hole and you mount them into that hole using epoxy. I like being able to take things apart quickly if something's wrong and I need to fix it, and so I can get back to work using the tool that much faster. So I like the idea of these flanged linear bearings. Those are what slides up and down on the guide pins, and they're mounted with the same number 6 sheet metal screws. Now, I did have to drill a 5/8 diameter hole to accommodate for the diameter of the shaft of that bearing. So also in this plate is a stop pin, so that I can set the depth of my depth stop. So anyway, this pin is nothing more than a 1/4 inch bolt that I cut to 2 1/4 inches long. Of course, a 1/4 inch hole for that to go in. And then this thumb screw is the same 10/24 thread as this other one. And installed here is a 10/24 brass insert, threaded insert. And the little spring there, I got off of that other little router plate that I never used. So that's all of this. Now these pins, everything is on 3-inch centers. So there's 3 inches exactly in between the pins and the holes here. So everything goes up and down nice and smooth, nothing's binding. So anyway, that's also the reason why I like the idea of these linear bearings. To keep everything nice and straight and hopefully more accurate. Alright, so the springs on the guide pins are just some 1.5-inch springs that I picked up from the local hardware store here in town. Nothing special about those. And then the one last thing here on this base plate is this little stop here. This little this was actually the head of the bolt that I cut off here. So I left a little bit of the shaft on the bolt head and countersunk a hole and installed this with some epoxy. So that gives me a nice solid place for my depth stop to land on top of. So that's my my little plunge base. Hopefully there's something here you can use. And finish it off with a little bit of clear coat, and then since I make violins and I use this as my brand that I use when I stamp parts on my violins. So hope you enjoyed that. Take care.